One of the great Muslim scholars in 10th century during the Islamic Golden Age was At-Thabari. He lived during the era of the Abbasid Caliph al-Mu'tasim. The Abbasid Caliphate was founded in year 750 after the Abbasid revolution succeeded in overthrowing the Umayyad in the same year, and this Abbasid era was ended in year 1258. On the leadership Caliphate Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, Baghdad was chosen as the capital city of the Abbasid Caliphate because of its geographic advantage. At that time, the city of Baghdad has played a role as an intellectual center and the dissemination of knowledge. The Islamic Golden Age started under the Caliph Harun al-Rashid. One of the factors that contributed to the Islamic Golden Age was the widespread of knowledge. The Caliph was very supported and emphasized the intellectual development by establishing many education institutions throughout the city and countryside. One of the main education institutions was House of Wisdom in Baghdad. It was a library for translators where scholars from all over the world with different culture and background, either they are Muslim or non-Muslim, work together and translate the philosophical and scientific work from Greek language into Arabic. This institution was one of the backbone of education during that period, as it provided the learning material to students in a variety of disciplines of knowledge. Moreover, the society at that time were very emphasized and loved to study. They took opportunity to study in educational institutions that provided by the government at that time. Also, many of them migrate from their hometown to study and seek knowledge from other scholars. The Abbasid made major contributions in many fields of knowledge and established many great scholars. One of the scholars of Abbasid was Al-Khwarizmi. He was a mathematical figure who introduced the number system in the Arabic alphabet and the number of zeros in algebra. Another great scholar of Abbasid was Al-Battani. He was an astronomer who found a way to measure the distance between the Earth and the Sun.
His full name is Abu Ja'far Muhammad bin Jarir bin Yazid bin Kathir At-Thabari. However, there are various different names used to mean the same person. The name of At-Thabari in the book Jami' al-Bayan and Ta'wil al-Quran is stated as Muhammad bin Jarir bin Yazid bin Khalid At-Thabari, while for Ibn Kathir, he mentioned the name of At-Thabari in his book Al-Bidayah wa An-Nihayah as Muhammad bin Jarir bin Yazid bin Kathir bin Ghalib. He was born in the year 224 Hijrah in Tabaristan, precisely in the city of Amul, which is the largest city in Tabaristan. At-Thabari is taken from the name of the place where he was born in Tabaristan. Besides being mentioned in the Tabaristan area, he is sometimes attributed to the city of Amul, so that it is called At-Thabari al-Amuli. The name of At-Thabari that attribute to him is the naming of a person at his place of birth and not to the descent. At-Thabari lived, grew and developed in a family environment that paid enough attention to educational problems, especially in the field of religion. Imam At-Thabari was born into a rich and wealthy family where his daily expenses were borne by his father so that he could fully concentrate in seeking knowledge. At-Thabari's father, Jarir ibn Yazid, was a scholar, and he was the one who also formed At-Thabari into a religious figure by taking him to study with teachers in his own area, from studying the Quran to other religious knowledge. His father's action was supported by several strong supporting factors. Among the factors is that he had memorized the whole Quran when he was just 7 years old. Then he had led the prayers when he was 8 years old, and when he just reached the age of 9, he had become a writer of hadith by the scholar's praise.
The journey education of Ibn Jarir At-Thabari. Ibn Jarir At-Thabari started his education journey when he was 12 years old in 236 after Hijrah. He left from his birthplace Tabaristan and going out to Ray. In Ray, Ibn Jarir At-Thabari studied Hadith and Muslim jurisprudence from Muhammad ibn Humayd al-Razi. He also has opportunity to learn historical works of Ibn Ishaq with Muhammad bin Ahmad bin Hamad ad-Dawlabi. After that, he continued his journey to Baghdad. Here, he wanted to meet Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Unfortunately, Ahmad ibn Hanbal was died before he arrived and he left from Baghdad in 242 after Hijrah. Then, he traveled to southern cities Basrah, Kufah and Wasit. Here, he met and studied with many famous scholars. After that, during 244 after Hijrah, he going back to Baghdad. He studied science of the Quran and the jurisprudence of Imam Shafi'i here. He also took a tutoring position, which is he teach Abu Yahya, who is Ubaidullah ibn Yahya ibn Kakon's son. Then, he continued his study to Basrah in learning hadith with Abu Abdullah al-Sha'nani. After that, he went to Kufah to study poetry with Sa'lab. In 253 after Hijrah, he visited Egypt. In this time, Ibn Jarir At-Thabari was already a famous scholar which is honored by a splendid reception. The intelligence and high knowledge of Ibn Jarir At-Thabari was able him to memorize hundred thousands of hadiths. Finally, from Egypt, Ibn Jarir At-Thabari returned back to Baghdad again. He made it as his last stop to devote all his scientific activities and spend the rest of his life in teaching and composing until his death. Next, Ibn Jarir At-Thabari characteristic. Firstly, fluent in speech. Ibn Jarir At-Thabari is well known as a person who has fluent in speech. He has a good way of speaking and never tend to hurt anyone. Secondly, he is a humble person. Ibn Jarir At-Thabari also was very humble to his companions, visitors and students without being proud of his position. Thirdly, zuhud and wara. He was a worshipper, ascetic, pious, always doing what's right, and he was a great righteous person. Furthermore, he also has a high spirit in whatever he doings, and he has a good well-mannered. Lastly, he is a forgiving person, which is he did not bear hatred against anyone, and he had a satisfied soul in excusing those who had wronged him and forgiving those who offended him.
Among the books of writing for the field dominated by Ibn Jarir At-Thabari, such as Tafsir Al-Quran, History, Tawhid, Fiqh, Hadith, and Qiraat. Now we look a book at the field of Tafsir Al-Quran is Jami' Al-Bayan and Ta'wil Ayul Al-Quran. This book known as Tafsir At-Thabari. In his theory of writing, At-Thabari used the theory of the combination ta'wil of narration and dirayah. This book is very famous not only in the East, but even famous in the West. He explained his tafsir, the legal data derived from the Quran, its abrogating and abrogated verses, difficult passages, rare words, and interpretation with the proper vocalization is i'rab hurufihi,
He did all this word by word. Next, a book in the field of history is Tarikh al-Rusul wa al-Muluk wa Akbarihim. Ibn Jarir At-Thabari has been recognized as invaluable in his book for the following reasons. First, the first perfect history book created on its own. Second, the most perfect source in Arab history because At-Thabari was the first to describe the events of the period from the creation of the world to his own time. Third, this book is an excellent source that sheds light on all the events that took place in the 3rd century after Hijrah. And then the field of Tawhid. This field has several of books, but I just choose 2 examples book only. It is Adab an-Nufus al-Jayyidah wa al-Akhlaq an-Nafisah. Looking at the title, the debate in this book recounts human behavior over every part of his body, from the head, mouth, ears, eyes, and all other limbs. Apart from that, this book also explains about the nature of piety, sincerity, gratitude, riya, arrogance, tawadu, khushu, and tasawwuf. And the second example book is Risalah al-Bashir fi Ma'alim ad-Din. This book was written specifically for the people of Tabaristan with a thickness of 30 pages. Its contents describe the religious principles practiced by them all this time.
And then we continue the field of fiqh. There are 2 books of fiqh. Firstly, the book Latif al-Qaw fi Ahkam Syar'i al-Islam, or we call in English version, is a light discussion on the Muslim law. The content of this book is principally related to a legal school. It is among the most valuable of his own books because it is the best and most interactive of any textbook of a legal school. Besides, this book also covers 33 debates, among which is the book Al-Bayan and Usul al-Ahkam. Secondly, the book Al-Khafif fi Ahkam Syar'i al-Islam. This book is a summary of the book Al-Latif. At-Thabari write this book because request from Minister Al-Hasan bin Ubay Allah, who wanted a book that discussed about fiqh. This book totally 400 pages, and the main purpose of this book is to make it easy to facilitate an understanding of Islamic law. And then we continue the field of hadith. There are 2 books of hadith. Firstly, the book Tarikh al-Rijal, also called the book Dal al-Mudil, discuss the history of the companion Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Quraysh tribes or other tribes. Also discuss life story, history of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and after his died. Then followed by the history of the Tabi'in, and at the end of the discussion talk about the knowledge of hadith. Secondly, the book Tahdi al-Attar discuss the truth of the narration of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, which is talk about the illah, the path of narration, and what needs to be taken from his sunnah. Besides, continue with the debate Musnad al-Ashra, Ibn Abbas al-Ahbaid, and others. At-Tabari compiled this book is to know the truth of the hadith that come from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, this book has not been fully written because At-Thabari died first. And the last, the field of Qiraat. There are 2 books of Qiraat. Firstly, the book Al-Jami'. This book describes all types of Qira'ah, whether famous or Qira'ah shadh. There are various books named, but all the books focus on the same work. And then this book totally has 18 volumes. According to Al-Dawudi, state that At-Tabari has a very good book about Qira'ah, which is the book Al-Jami'. Secondly, the book Al-Fas Bayan Al-Qira'ah. This book explains or discusses the differences in the way of reading practiced by the Qurra. Apart from that, At-Tabari also tried to separate the name of each Qurra, whether Qurra Madinah, Mecca, Sham, Basra, Kufa, and so on. He gives separate detail on each reading, but at the same time, At-Thabari was a famous person in good Quran recitation.
In conclusion, At-Thabari was a figure of Tabaristan-born scholar during the Abbasid era who was famous for the greatness of his knowledge, especially in the field of tafsir and history. All his interests shown since childhood have greatly encouraged his father to cover all his expenses, especially in seeking knowledge. The journey of education that has started since the age of 12 allows him to be a great writer in various fields of science, such as Tafsir At-Thabari, which is very famous tafsir book that still used as a reference until today. His noble and great personality should be used as an example by all human beings so that we can produce more scholars in this world.